So, welcome to the Breathing Edge podcast. My name is not Shane Saunders. My name is not Angelina Saunders, but I'm so proud and so excited to have Shane and Angelina here with me today. My name is Brett Jarman. I'm the producer and founder of the Experts on Air podcast network. And yeah, I can't tell you how excited I am to be kicking off this podcast with these guys. I'll sit in the driver's seat for this first episode. And then for future episodes, basically, we'll hand over the keys to them because they've got so much to share. So welcome, Shane and Angelina.
Thank you, Brett.
So the Breathing Edge, really, we're making a podcast about breathing. How is that possible? What are we going to talk about and how can we sustain it? What's the Breathing Edge about, guys?
Breathing, I think we'll start with breathing. Breathing for us, when we sort of got into it, we could see that it had the the appearance that it's just as dogmatic as yoga, as Pilates, as many of these other disciplines that we've seen. And when I say dogmatic, what we've been able to see in the breathing is we've seen something that can be quite complex, but when you break it down, it comes down into these really simple fundamental factors. And what we've really seen is it's supercharged everything that we've done. It's supercharged our business. It's supercharged our relationship. It's supercharged our finances and our wealth, everything. So the Breathing Edge is really about stripping away, the dogma, stripping away even the really, respiratory science is a really complex thing, but there's respiratory science and what happens with breathing on a respiratory level, but then there's also what you do mechanically with it and how that also affects the way you behave, the way you live. We use it to reprogram habits. There's so many uses for it, and let alone getting right down the rabbit hole in where breathing is referenced. Look, it's referenced in all the ancient texts. It's referenced in all religious stuff. There's a reference to it, inspiring. Interestingly enough, I watched a documentary on ancient Egypt the other day, and they were saying that when they wanted to destroy the inspiration of the culture, they would knock the noses off the statues.
Oh, wow.
I thought, wow, like
how's that for a sign?
Yeah, of the main breathing tool on your face, which is the nose, gets knocked off to knock out the inspiration of the culture. So it just, everywhere we look, there's a reference to breathing, and I think to where we kind of start with it and where we take it to is the physical body first, because we find that that's really the important aspect of where we come from with it. And so the Breathing Edge is really about the practicality of breathing and how you can practically apply breathing, and the methodologies that Angie and I have thought about how to simplify the methodologies. And so we have the Power of Three methodology, which we'll go into in another podcast. But the Breathing Edge is about bringing that, how to integrate that into your life. How do you integrate that into, because people say to me all the time, finances, like, I'll say, well, if money's energy and you have more energy, do you think you're going to have more money? I mean, we've seen it. We've witnessed it for ourselves.
Yeah, and it's not only just having a breathing practice is not for sandal wearers, just sandal wearers anymore. What we found over trialing different breathing methods over the last 4 years and studying it intimately is that it's increased our energy levels to be able to handle more. So what we talk about is, when you fill up your cup, you either have to get a new cup or you make a bigger cup. So it's what it's enabled for me, especially being a mom of 2 very small children, running a business, having a relationship, having investments, doing the juggling act. It's the one thing that has kept me grounded and energized at the same time. And for me, that's the magical pill.
It improves your juggling. Improves your juggling. You'll get
focus.
You'll get 2 to 3 extra balls in the air, I guarantee you.
Okay, well, I've yet to test that out, but one thing I'll share with the listeners and the viewers is as well as sort of working with you guys, so we're in a mastermind group together, but I've also worked with you guys as a client, and just thinking what may be going through the head of some of the listeners is, well, breathing, it's you just breathe in, you breathe out. I've been doing it naturally since I was born. And that was my first response when I heard that you guys were doing this work. I thought, like, I'd heard about breath work and rebirthing, but that's not what this is about. This is, as you say, it's about making it practical. And I just want to share my experience of it. You mentioned it's supercharging pretty much everything in your life. And that is absolutely my experience. Like I went to a couple of sort of short workshops that you both did, and I was blown away at the first one. And since then, I think I've probably done a live experience with you at least once every 2 months, every month, wherever I can. And so I just wanted to put that in there for the people who are a bit skeptical or wary, thinking, well, there can't be much to this. I absolutely promise you there is. And when they talk about supercharging finances, relationships, health, personal energy, sleeping patterns, you run out of fingers before you run out of things to talk about that this really relates to. And so that's why, that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited to be doing this with you. So tell us, how did you guys happen to be doing this? Like, you don't go to university to get a degree in breathing. Where does this come from?
Yeah. Well, I think Shane started it, and I kind of want to share my.
He started it. It's his fault.
Shane started it, and I've got to share my bit around it because I fought it. And I think that where I come from, a lot of people might be coming from too, because I was like, just like what you said, Brett, breathing. Yeah. And then, Shane would be like, just go and lie down, do some breathing for like 5 or 10 minutes. And I get 5-10 minutes into it and I'd fall asleep, or I'd get irritated. So I'm like, what am I doing this for? I feel like it's a waste of time. And I'm like, it felt like it was a miserable experience. And then once I learned more about it, understood more about it, and then I created this willingness to learn more. Okay, if there's more around this, let's give it a try. And so the willingness came, and I was like, all right, I'm going to breathe like I mean it. And then I would do those sessions. Shane and I did sessions together, and we sat with each other at the start. And I had some massive breathing sessions that you just can't really explain with words. They're purely experiential, but it's relieved you, or for me, it relieved me of a lot of like the heaviness that I felt. It relieved me from a lot of the pressure I put on myself. And I also started to think clearly. And then my peripheral view of life started expanding, and then I started to see more and hear more, and then I started to experience more, and then life all of a sudden started shifting for me.
For the better, for all of us.
Because if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Breathe, Angie, please.
Yes. Brett, I jumped into my career early. I joined the military at 16 and was a little bit lost in there, but I found my way to fitness instructing, and then climbed the ladder there into training special forces. So I was training Navy divers, I was training SAS soldiers, commandos. I went and did the training myself. Fortunately, I didn't go through with the training all the way. I didn't think professional soldier was the life that I wanted to live. And all the lessons, all the failures, all the triumphs, all of that has been totally valuable. And I know that during my time of working with those guys at a high level, I became really, really interested in the body can drive, but what's driving the body? And so I got quite interested in the link between, what your mind can handle and how that translates into the body, because I was put under massive amounts of stress during that training. I was watching these guys have to handle massive amounts of stress as well. So if something doesn't work in that environment, you will just dismiss it. Like if it's something that doesn't work straight away, you'll just dismiss it. And I never made the link at the time, but the amount of exercise that you do or training that you do for something like that is going to increase your breathing. It's going to put you in an altered state sometimes when you are under duress for a long time, and it's an interesting concept. And so looking back on it now, the breathing was always there, but I'd never really put any particular focus on it. The reason that Angie mentioned it is difficult to explain to people, but the reason that it affects us so much is because it alters your body chemistry faster than anything else will. So if you want to change your state, if you think you're drinking coffee in the morning is going to change your state faster, you might enjoy it a little bit more, but I can tell you right now, your blood pH and the chemistry in your body will change so fast when you start taking control of your breathing. So that's number one. So it'll get you high and into a different state of mind very fast. The other main link that it has is with the central nervous system. So when you inhale, it upregulates the central nervous system. When you exhale, it downregulates. So there you've got energize or rest, and you can choose what you want to do in any particular time with your breathing. So, the people that we come across, that we talk to all the time, they have high anxiety. They can't relax. How many business owners, how many people out there suffer from some form of anxiety or can't relax, or on the opposite, suffer from, I can't get myself out of bed in the morning, and because I've got no drive and no willingness to get out and complete tasks or do things in my business, or be a great dad, or try and maintain a relationship. All these things, they require energy, and they require your body and your central nervous system to be firing, on all cylinders, let's say. So I think from a physical perspective, it's a simple tool that's inherent in you, and I don't think that it's any mistake that it is a system in your body that's both under conscious control and unconscious control. And I think that's an important distinction to make, because there's nothing else in your body that is like that, where you can grab hold of it or you can let it go. Your body can breathe, or you can start breathing and taking over. And it's one of our mentors did say to us at one time, he said, it's an invitation to participate in your evolution.
Wow.
And that struck me. I was like, you know what? And now that we've been, using the breathing as a tool, we are really seeing how that is true for us, and feeling it and living it. Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. That's really powerful language, participating in your own evolution. So that kind of relates to what you were saying there about, and people may get the wrong impression from these words. You talked about getting high and altered states. We want to drive the point home. We're not talking about in the terms of the sandal wearing terms of those words. We're talking about in practical ways. And when you think about evolution, as you evolve, you are taking on new states. And so my experience of the doing the breathing work with you is it just opens us up to, I don't know, new possibilities. It's a bit like I'm wearing glasses at the moment. So when I haven't got my glasses on, I can see okay, and I can probably read things, with a little bit of effort. But then when I put the glasses on, things become so much clearer. That for me is what breathing is doing. It's like I'm able to fine tune not just my visual perception, but my experience of the world. So I just wanted to put that in there, just in case people were getting the wrong idea about this altered states and getting high. And the getting high thing.
About this.
Say again?
We've both got lots to say about this. Angie's grabbed me. I'll talk first.
Okay, cool. So jump in there.
Because it's like all of us as peak performers, those that have been for a run, like literally go for a run or exercise, you get that runner's high after you've put that effort into. Now, what we're experiencing is we don't have to put that much effort, but we still get the same payoff. So how's that for leverage? So it's using your breath to leverage your energy, to leverage your clarity, your sleep even, leverage detoxing, leverage being able to absorb the foods that you're eating. It's
you guys are hearing a list of all the podcasts that we're going to do as well. So
thank you.
So stay tuned on how it leverages all of those things.
We can't do everything in one podcast, so that's why we're interviewing now, but these are all going to be episodes where we're going to go deeper into all of these aspects. So you do understand the science behind it, and then the practical feeling and application that's wrapped around it that we've experienced.
Now, the question that you raised, Brett, is an interesting one, and it's a personal favorite of mine. And you're right. It's it's not about popping pills in the disco and getting into an altered state. I mean, that is literally what everybody is seeking. I'm not saying popping the pills in the disco, but in life, you're constantly seeking a state change. And so from an early age, when you're a kid and you're on the swing and the swing's going back and forward, or you're on the roundabout and getting dizzy, that is altering the chemistry or even the liquids in your brain and giving you an altered state. And so as humans, we are hardwired to find this, to constantly be getting into this altered state, because personally, for me, I believe it's because it connects you with something else. It opens space in you, as you described before. It opens space in you, and it does connect you in with something else. Now, I wouldn't be interested in it if I hadn't started looking at the fact that the Navy SEALs, Google, you name it, all these big companies are now starting to look at what are the leadership applications of these so-called altered states or flow states, as they put it. Well, we're starting to work out really fast that you start to cultivate presence. And if most people know anything in let's say in a business context, people feel you before any interaction happens. The people that have a palatable presence, you know that they're there. Is that valuable in sales? Absolutely. Is it valuable when you're doing negotiations? Absolutely. Is it valuable when you are influencing people? I mean, so long as you're not trying to sell them something that they don't need. But there's a palatable presence that comes from it. So these altered states regulate your nervous system. They regulate other people's nervous systems around you. And the other thing too is that they help you solve. There's a term that they use called complex problems, and they're usually problems that don't involve just you being able to deduct things. They involve emotional issues, or they involve you needing to look at something from a different perspective, not just your own. And so what these altered states allow you is they allow you access almost by opening up your thinking or maturing your thinking to the point where you will have altered traits, or you will see things differently. You'll hear things that you didn't hear before. Same information. We feel like it's an untangling. We're untangled. We feel like there's a lot of stuff that we know, that we've experienced, we've read it in books, but then you start to untangle it, and the same stuff has a different meaning. If that makes sense. I know I'm kind of going off down the rabbit hole because it's again, it's an experiential thing, and it's very difficult to try and describe it.
It's almost like you get to have a holiday from yourself because all that mind chatter is what causes the stress, I feel. And science has shown that 46.9% of brain power gets wasted on useless thoughts, worrying about something that hasn't happened, or trying to work out something from one perspective only. So when you start and look, people are bringing meditation in as part of corporate wellness programs, and that's great if you can meditate and you can quiet the chatter. But if it's somebody who's similar to me, who the chatter is really loud and really fast, you've got to do something different. So when I started incorporating the breathing into being still, I got to energize my body and relax my body at the same time. And as I was doing that, that chatter just stopped. And it was like the biggest relief I've had from myself. And then coming out of a breathing session, it's like, I can love my husband again. I get ideas for my business and for how I should be parenting my children and how I can talk to my husband.
And the mechanics of that, is the shutting off of the prefrontal cortex, or the front part of the brain, just so that people can kind of connect it to something physical. And they've done shitloads of testing on this stuff now to understand what parts of the brain are firing off. And literally, as Angie said, dropping yourself into these flow channels. And the interesting thing about dropping yourself into a flow channel is it has to be slightly uncomfortable. It has to make you stretch, not snap. So, you can do it through exercise. You can do, like, as we said before, the altered states are more about dropping you into this flow channel. And that does have these aspects of shutting those parts of the brain off. So it's a bit of a switch for you. It's a switch for you to play with, to explore, I think.
Right. So clearly we've demonstrated you guys are going to have no problems finding something to talk about in the weeks, months and years as we roll out the podcast. So just on the meditation thing, I'll share my experience. I've been meditating for almost 30 years. So I learned TM back in the 80s, it would have been. But very similar experience to you. Sometimes you sit down and there's just this noise. And now I realize it was you, Angie, but
I'm very loud.
So now I know where that comes from. For me, what the breathing allows me to do, and now I pretty much do both of them every day. Sometimes the meditation's a really restless experience, whereas the breathing exercises that I'm doing as a result of the work with you guys, because I'm actively involved with them, as you say, everything else just kind of shuts off, and you're preoccupied with doing the exercise. So it's very different experience and extremely powerful. So I'll leave you guys to talk more details in future episodes. As far as the podcast itself goes, what are you looking forward to most in terms of outcomes? What kind of effect do you want to happen as a result of the podcast?
Just to demystify breathing, and also to provoke. I want to provoke people. I want to provoke people's interest. I want to indict the status quo that comes around just breathing, because we get that a lot. We get people say, oh, well, yeah, I breathe, so big deal. And there's nothing I can say to that. I'm like, you're absolutely correct. It's you can't force an experience on someone. That is one of the things that we've learned around truth. Your experience is your own truth. So really just demystifying, but also giving people some rock solid practical applications to the breathing, something that's really simple, that is not another thing that they have to add to their list. It's not another yoga class that they have to go and do. You mentioned meditation, and I want to put in there that my experience with this is that stilling the body in meditation, a lot of people don't get past stilling the body, let alone the mind chatter. I mean, I don't have strong mind chatter. Angie does. Obviously you do. That's not my thing. I have other things going on, but the stilling of the body is the very start of it. And the breathing kind of just bypasses that, because and we'll go into a little bit into detail into the methodology that we use for the breathing, but the types of breathing that we use are specifically designed to release the tension out of the body. And that's why you drop into that meditative channel so fast. And you mentioned before, what's interesting is the critical mind with the breathing has enough meat to grab onto that, to know that it's doing something or it's got a task, and it keeps doing it. And then all of a sudden you drop into the meditative state. So it's almost like you're not trying to sit still and wait for it to shut up and try and, move the thoughts around. So really we want to bring that kind of stuff to people on the podcast. The fact that there's shortcut methods to some of these things where people have said, oh, meditation, yeah, that takes you 7 years sitting in a cave before you get enlightened. It's like, wow, I don't have that long. I got businesses to run, and I've got kids to look after. I've got a relationship. So For me, it's a very powerful shortcut way to really achieve these states, let alone getting into starting to build your vitality pool and your power from the breathing as well. I mean, resting and relaxing is one thing, but then charging yourself up is another thing. And so that's really the podcast for us is about that, and it's specific to to entrepreneurs, to high achievers, to people that are in business, to people that want to feel 5% better, or they want something different. They want even a spiritual experience from it.
Yeah. And from my perspective, the intention for the podcast is to be able to unpack our knowledge for things that have worked for us. It is to use some science as to why it works. It's to use how it worked for us and how it could potentially work for you if you tried this. And it's an accelerated wellness, sort of a niche. So it's whatever you're doing now, how to leverage and accelerate what you're doing now.
Yeah, the art of relaxation for performance.
Yes, brilliant.
But there's just the power that's in the relaxation is ridiculous. Like, I would never have, I mean, you've experienced what it's like, Brett, and so the other thing with the podcast is the breathing is a foundation and a mainstay, but we go into cold immersions, hot immersions. We go into what are the leverage things that you can do for your health, for the health of your body, but also how does that then carry over into the health of your mind, your emotions, spiritual health, all those sorts of things. So it's really starting to shine a light on those things and find out what are the leverage things, because I can tell you right now, we've done thousands of hours of this shit, thousands of hours of it. Thousands of hours of breathing, thousands of hours of getting in hot and cold. So we've, the experience or what we're reporting back of what's worked for us has come from us actually engaging in it and doing it. And then channeling that or organizing our life, our work, our finances, our relationship, organizing the aspects of of their life for the maximum flow, for how do we bring those things in so that we're getting maximum penetration in those areas. And people say to us all the time, they're like, how do you have time for all of this? I can tell you, time starts behaving differently.
I don't know. I just breathe.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is very easy to integrate into your normal sort of everyday life. So, all right, so let's wrap it up there. We'll just do a couple of logistical things here first. So your website, if people want to jump across now and find out a little bit more about you, is at breatheme.com.
Yes.
breatheme.com. Future episodes of the podcast are already up. So if we've piqued your interest, go straight to the next episode on your whatever tool it is you're using to listen to your podcast, and listen to the next episode. And if you want to see what your subscription options are, you can go to breathingedgepodcast.com. Whether you're on Android or iPhone, whatever your tools of choice are, you can find a link direct to the player where you can start downloading and subscribing to the episodes. So thank you so much, Shane and Angelina. I'll hand over the keys to you guys now and let you guys take over and start putting out some more episodes and bringing a breath of fresh air to the world.
Thank you, Brett. We'll see
Thanks,
you
Brett.
on the other side.
Okay. Thanks again.
Thanks.